Viking Saga, Story 4, Part 2. The Kingdom That Fought Back. By early 868 AD, England finally understood the truth York had written in smoke. The Vikings were not raiders anymore, they were occupiers. Northumbria was cracked, its roads watched, its river crossings held. But conquest wakes resistance. Mercia and Wessex began to coordinate, and for the first time the English fought not as rivals, but as a wall. The clash came on the Trent Basin, on flat ground broken by marsh and narrow causeways. English levies arrived in heavy ranks, shields high, spears forward, banners snapping in cold wind. They expected a rush of wild men. What they met was silence and a line. The Viking host formed a shield wall with brutal discipline. Overlapping boards, iron bosses aligned, axes held low behind the first rank. No war cries, only measured breathing, leather creaking, the soft grind of boots in mud. When the English advanced, their front hit the wall like surf hitting rock. Spears jabbed, shields buckled, and both sides locked so tight that neither could step back without breaking. Then the Vikings began to move, one pace at a time. They pushed the center just enough to fix the English in place, while small units slipped along firmer ground to the left. On the marshy flank, English feet sank, spacing widened, and the shield line lost its perfect edge. A signal passed hand to hand. The Vikings shifted weight, angled shields, and drove wedges into the gaps. Axes rose only when distance collapsed, striking arms that held shields, hooking spear shafts, tearing openings for the next man. The English tried to reform, shouting commands that died in the mud. The first break was not dramatic. It was a bend. A section of the English line bowed inward, then split. Once one file turned, panic ran faster than orders. Men stumbled over reeds and bodies, trying to retreat across narrow causeways now clogged. The Vikings did not chase blindly. They pressed, closed, and cut off escape routes, turning retreat into a trap. By the end of the day, the English had lost hundreds, perhaps more, while Viking losses were fewer but real, paid in exhausted arms and broken shields. England learned the lesson. These Vikings fought like an army, but the Vikings learned a darker lesson. Victory was easy. Holding land was expensive. Garrisons stretched thin. Winter punished supply lines. Villagers resisted with silence, hiding grain, poisoning routes, lying to guides.
This is not conquest.
By late 868 AD, English strategy shifted to containment. Fortified towns held, roads were blocked, and the Vikings found themselves boxed near Nottingham, forced into negotiations, hostages, and temporary lines no one trusted. Fear had opened the door. Now rule had to keep it open. After Trent, the English did not surrender. They rebuilt their shield wall, trained their fyrd, and called allies from estates that had never marched together. Scouts shadowed Viking columns, avoiding direct contact, striking supply wagons at night, then disappearing into woods and fens. The Vikings answered by hardening the occupation. Lookouts on every bridge, patrols on every track, winter camps dug into earthworks, and strict rules over food and horses. Control became paperwork as much as steel. The next confrontation was not a single clean battle, but a grind around fortified towns. In late 868, the Vikings moved toward Nottingham, a strategic crossing on the River Trent. Instead of a frontal assault, they built pressure, palisades to cut movement, boats to control the river, and small raids to keep the defenders awake.
Look at this mud.
They tested gates with rams, probed weak points at dusk, and withdrew before losses mounted.
Close it now.
The English learned to hold walls. The Vikings learned to starve time. When Alfred's forces arrived, the field belonged to neither side. The English camped in disciplined lines, dug trenches, and protected their supply routes. The Vikings answered by tightening their own perimeter, keeping shields ready but conserving strength. Nights were filled with torchlight, taunts, and the creak of bowstrings. Not constant combat, but constant threat. Negotiators moved between camps under guard. Hostages were exchanged because both sides understood. One mistake could turn a stalemate into slaughter. In the council tents, the Vikings argued without shouting. Some wanted to break south immediately, to seize richer land. Others insisted the north must be secured first. Taxes, winter stores, and a stable capital at Jorvik. The army was large, but not infinite. Every garrison pulled from the field weakened the spear line. Every mile marched stretched food. Rule demanded patience, and patience felt like weakness to men raised on raids. England pressed that weakness. Mercian rider harassed outposts. Local lords refused to trade. Priests preached resistance. The Vikings responded the only way a new regime can, by proving permanence. They minted coin, measured land, and appointed overseers. They did not just win battles, they tried to replace the old order with a new one. That is why part 2 ends in tension, not triumph. The Vikings had crossed a line. They could no longer vanish into the sea. Their ships were no longer an escape. They were a supply chain. And once you need a supply chain, you can be contained. And in that cold arithmetic of rule, every victory began to feel like debt. Paid. Future Tease, Part 3. In the next part, conquest becomes governance. We enter Jorvik's halls, the birth of Viking law, and the first cracks inside the ruling class. Because the deadliest enemy of the Vikings will not be an English blade, but the weight of the crown.